Florida State's in a rough position right now on the field, and they might be in an even spot when it comes to coaching contracts. Not just the $64 million buyout that Coach Norvell has, but some of the assistants as well. I'm going to talk with Richie about that in today's video presented by BetUS. All right, Richie, Florida State right now, not only on the field, but also with regard to contracts and coaching contracts. And we all know, I understand, a lot of people, oh, well, you should just fire Norvell. Listen, whether you think he's going to work out or not, I just don't think that's feasible. I'll tell you, I think it's less likely than more likely that he can get it turned around and get this thing going in the right direction. Like if you ask me right now, if will Mike Norvell be the coach at Florida State in 4 years? Like I'd probably say it's unlikely. Like it's more likely that he's not. Firing him, unfortunately, I just don't think that that's a realistic possibility. I don't think that it's something that they could afford to do. A $64 million buyout with probably a pretty large chunk due up front just makes that pretty impossible. But Richie, we were talking about this before, we got on a little bit earlier. People are talking about this UNLV. Well, I guess it was me and Harlan that maybe were talking about it. But talking about this UNLV offensive coordinator, I want to do some content around that just to give myself hype. Atkins' contract is through 2028. Like, I don't know, and he's got a show cause. And people have asked me what the big deal about that is. We can talk about that in a minute. But like his contract goes for several more years. I don't necessarily know that they're going to make changes there. I don't necessarily know that they're going to make changes on the defensive side with the coordinator because of how far out the contracts go. I don't have the exact date on Fuller's, but they're in an absolute bind with the money that they owe for these contracts because, and I'll say, it's not Mike Norvell's fault that he has a $64 million buyout, right? That's not on him. It is his fault that everyone else got an extension and a raise in December. It is absolutely his fault that that's the case. And so he is, I don't know, like if you go to Michael Alford right now and you say like, hey, we need to make coaching changes. I need I don't even know what the number would be, but I need an extra $8 million to buy coaches out. And then we're going to hire new coaches. And those coaches are supposedly, we're going to try and bring in better coaches than we have right now at some positions. And so not only do I need $8 million to buy them out, which I don't know the exact numbers or math on what firing 4 or 5 coaches would be, but just throwing a number out there. Not only do I need $8 million to buy them out, I also need more money than you're paying them now, which this is a very well-paid staff. This is not a poor staff by any means. This is a top 20 paid coaching staff. Now we need to jump in the top 10 because I got to upgrade. I got to upgrade these positions and get better. And so I don't know that we want coaching changes. We want things to be fixed, but money-wise, I mean, are they able to do that? They've got a football-only facility being built. They're spending hundreds of $millions renovating Doak. They're at a $40 million deficit right now with the Power 2. That's why they're suing to get out of the conference. They owe $570 million, the ACC says, if they leave. I don't really believe that number. But anyway, people want change, and I do think there will be some change, but coaching contracts have them in an absolute bind right now. I'll get right back to chatting with Richie about coaching contracts. But first, if you haven't already, make sure that you're going over to BetUS and using our code YouTube150. That's YouTube150 to get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Your next 2 deposits are at 125% bonus. And right now, a 3-touchdown dog to Miami. So if you think they can cover, if you're feeling a little bit frisky, go lay some money on it. If you don't think the Noles cover and you want some emotional support, then go bet on Miami and you're a winner either way this weekend. Go use our code though, BetUS. Use YouTube150. All 3 of those bonuses up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support. Not just a one-time deal. They'll take care of you on your first 3 again, up to $2,000. Appreciate them for helping us out this year.
Yeah, and unless you are just elite at your position, and we know you are, no assistant coach should ever get more than a 2 or 3 year contract at any given time. They should not, no assistant should be extended, 4+ years, which is what we did in some cases. And Alex Atkins is a guy that we talked about who, there was a time we were worried that he was going to go take a head coaching job at Charlotte or something. And now someone his product is not performing. And I know this is Mike's offense. Mike calls the plays, but his offensive line is not good, and the offense as a whole is not good, and he plays a role in that. Then you go to wide receiver, and Dugans is a guy I think you absolutely have to part ways with this year. And I hate calling to fire coaches on this show, but that's where we are. When you're 1-6, no job should be safe. Mike's job is only safe right now because he'd be owed, what, 68, 63 million, something like that, if they were to let him go. And I don't think you should fire Mike after this year because it's kind of a one-off. He did, went from 3 wins to 5 wins to 10 to 13. And this year, maybe it's an anomaly. I don't know if that's the case because you haven't recruited great at high school. You've relied heavily on the portal. And we thought we had a nice portal haul this year, and that turned out not to be the case. Maybe you just caught lightning in a bottle and with guys like Trey Benson, who nobody really wanted, Johnny Wilson, nobody really wanted him. Keon Coleman, a guy who everybody wanted, but you were able to sell him on Jordan Travis. There's just, again, the money is the issue. Clearly, we're not a Texas or a Michigan or whoever it may be, but there needs to be severe changes on this staff, and you need to find the money to do it because if you don't spend the money now to make these changes, guess what? That money's going to start drying up real quick if you start off next year, 2-5 or whatever it may be, because you're opening with Alabama. You're not winning that game.
Yeah, it's hard to see a path to it, although, I would love to have their problems right now. They're probably going to win out and get in the playoff at 10-2. But I don't know, man. I think you're in a tough spot. Okay, I have a take on this too, just coaching contracts in general. As much as I just took blame away from Mike Norvell for the fact that he is making $64 million. If we fire him, he's going to make $10 million. If it's not this year, it's next. It is crazy to me that coaches aren't like, he's going to like his product, his team. And this is where I'll get on Mike, right? Like, I'm not firing him just yet, but maybe this will make, and I see we got a super chat. We'll do that after this segment, and I appreciate whoever it was with the love. His program, his team is going to cost this university and this, this athletic department millions of dollars. Like, he is going to cost us millions of dollars in lost revenue, in ticket sales being down, things like that, right? Like people canceling the boosters, canceling NIL. Like, yep. And Mike is still going to make $10 million one way or the other and get 2 or 3 wins out of it. Like, I don't know where that third one would come from. I think North Carolina is a little worse than Duke, but probably not as good of a matchup for us as Duke was. So I don't know, maybe 3, probably 2. See if we can beat Charleston Southern. I guarantee if you have 3 turnovers on 3 plays by the same player, you probably won't beat Charleston Southern, but Mike is going to make $10 million one way or the other. And so this isn't, I'm not like mad at Mike for this, but like that to me is a little bit frustrating. That you, first of all, that you signed a contract like that, right? And that's Florida State's administration. Second, that like Jimmy Sexton has the sport so much by the balls that you can't get out of that anyway if you wanted to. But it is absurd to me. Everyone else is going to pay for this. Like the battle's end, I would be surprised if their budget is as high next year due to the lack of support that people are pulling back. I would be surprised if their budget is as high next year because of this. The FSU athletic department, their budget is going to be lower next year because they're going to have to buy out some coaches and they are going to spend some money. And we are at a deficit right now and we are paying legal fees and we are bringing in less revenue because of ticket sales and we are bringing in less revenue when it comes to people canceling their booster, stuff like that. But Mike ain't going to make no less money. Like he ain't like that contract is still $10 million for him. And that is absurd to me. And I really think, and it's not Mike's fault. Like we're the ones that signed it. Sexton's the one that arranged it and negotiated it. But I almost think that coaching contracts, and this would never happen because there's one guy that controls all of it. And we got to stop hiring Sexton clients if there are even any that exist. But you really, coaching contract should be this. If you make a bowl, you get $5 million and every win past that is another $1 million. So you get 12 wins, great, $12 million. You can make more than we promised you. But if you get 3 wins at Florida State, if you have 2 wins at Florida State, you literally make nothing. You make like your university salary. His university salary is like $265,000 or something like that. And then the boosters pay the rest of the contract. That's what coaching contract should be. And honestly, it should probably go that way for NIL too, just being fair. that it should be performance based. I know it's not allowed to be right now with rules. Not that there are any rules, but it's absurd to me that Mike Norvell is going to make $10 million for 2 wins and at Florida State, right? Not at FIU, not at USF, not at UCF. Florida State University, he's going to make $10 million for 2 wins. And if he fails again, we talk about like, well, you're not going to fire him this year, but you might fire him next year if you only win 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, whatever. Fails again, it's an even bigger bonus. Okay, well now we're going to pay you $50 million to buy you out after next year. So I think coaching contracts are absolutely absurd, and we're kind of screwed with it unless magic happens and he turns it around.
Yeah, and I don't know how you turn it around at this point. I just don't see it. How many players have checked out at this point? The defense, again, they performed well yesterday for the most part. Outside of that, long run they gave up in the third quarter that ultimately probably cost you the game. That didn't cost you the game any more than the 3 straight turnovers that led to 17 straight points for Duke. You're down by 14 on the road. But yeah, these contracts, it's crazy. To your point, TJ, Mike Norvell's going to probably make $5 million per win this year. Now, imagine if those 10 wins, and that would be $50 million. But yeah, $5 million per win this year, because you might beat North Carolina. I don't think you're beating Florida. They've seemed that offense at least has turned things around, which maybe is a good thing because that'll keep Billy Napier around, and that's something we should all want. But you're not beating Miami. You're 21-point dogs to Miami. You're not going to go up to South Bend, Indiana, and beat Notre Dame. North Carolina and Charleston Southern are the only 2 truly winnable games left on the schedule. Now it's college football. Anything can happen. They could upset Miami. They could upset Notre Dame, but I wouldn't bet a single penny on that happening. I don't care what the odds are. I think the odds were like plus 720 for Florida State money line against Miami. I'm not betting that. That's not worth. I'm not losing $1 for the chance to win $70. It's just not worth it. But yeah, these contracts are insane. Unfortunately, Jimmy Sexton does have a monopoly when it comes to the top college coaches in the country, and he knows what he's doing. And he leveraged that Alabama job opening perfectly. I'm not sure if they would have
for like 4 clients, not just Norvell, for like 4 of his clients.
Yeah, he leveraged that perfectly for Lanning, DeBoer, Norvell, and Sark. Yeah, all 4 of those guys got paid a ton of money just because Nick Saban retired. And, he played it perfectly. And I'm not mad at Jimmy Sexton either, because that's his job. His job is to make as much money for his clients as he can, so he can make as much money for him and his family as he can. So good for Jimmy Sexton. Like, I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at these coaches. But yeah, you end up in a real bind when you offer the kind of contract you did. And yeah, it's just frustrating because, even if Norvell, say he goes 4-8 next year, I don't think you have the money to fire him still. I think it's still too early in his contract.
I think the buyout at that point would be like $50 million. I'm just guessing, right? It decreases every year by about the amount. Actually, it'd be more than that. It'd be like 55.
He's owed 85% of whatever's left on his contract.
Yeah, and so you're going to take like $9 million off from this year's contract, so he'd be down to so it'd be like $55 million. I will say if they miss a bowl again next year, I think they'll do something. And you could theoretically, maybe he's a nice guy. Maybe he'll negotiate with you some. Maybe he'll try and have a graceful, because if he has another losing season, maybe he won't want to be part of that. Maybe he'll negotiate with you and extend out some payments, or, obviously if he takes another job, that usually comes off of the buyout, right? If you're paying him $10 million a year and he takes a job for $6 million, you only have to pay him $4 million. So there are some options, but yeah, it ain't good right now. It at least it's not as bad as Jimbo's contract was with A&M. But just from a big picture thing again, like you think like, well, maybe everybody could band together and stop offering coaches these contracts. Well, who's going to be the first one to do that, first of all? And second, when you're at places like Texas A&M and Texas and stuff, they don't care about money. Like money literally grows on trees, or actually comes up out of the ground in liquid form, but they don't care about money. So everybody else in the entire country could say like, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to band together and not play Sexton's games. And A&M and Texas are going to be like, sounds good. We're not with y'all. Like, we're doing what we want to do.
A&M literally had a donor present $100 million check on the field the day Jimbo got fired. I
Yeah.
said one of
They
the things to me.
yeah, they do not care. So all right, let me give a little bit of love to Garnet and Gold. I guess just before that, let's get Hunter in here real quick. Oh, you know what? This actually goes with it. We can leave this in. Leave this in the thing. Oklahoma just fired their OC as we speak. Clean house and go Noles. Hunter, thank you for jumping in the live on Friday night. If you guys didn't see that, you shouldn't go back and watch it. I was worse Friday night than I was tonight. So, Hunter, I appreciate you. Yeah, I comment this every time on Twitter, and again, just sarcasm, reigns at this point. But I didn't know you were allowed to fire coaches in the middle of a season, Richie. And so it's a little surprising to me that Oklahoma broke the rules and did this. I don't know if the SEC is going to fine them for, speaking of fines, I saw what Texas did. That was funny. But I didn't know you were allowed to do that. And so maybe the SEC will fine Oklahoma for firing a coach in the middle of the season. I don't think that's allowed. And so kind of crazy to me that Oklahoma would just blatantly break the rules like that. But I appreciate Florida State for upholding the rules of not firing coaches in the middle of the season, because that is just completely unethical and against everything that this country was founded on, I suppose. I think at this point, Richie, we had this conversation a few weeks ago. Should you fire coaches? Should you not fire coaches during the season? This, that, and the other. I do think it would probably send a little bit of a message to, one, recruits, your fan base, your donors, like, hey, this is not okay. We're serious about this and we're going to make changes immediately. It would also send a message to the rest of the staff, like, hey, get your crap together. Start making phone calls to recruits. Start working. Start putting an effort forward. Start getting your guys to catch the ball. Start doing this, that, and the other, which maybe the bridge is already burned on that one. But, I think Florida State should probably consider doing that at some point, even if it's just with one guy. Just, hey, we had to make a change here. We had to send a message. But I'm not super confident that they do.
Yeah, and it's tricky because if you're going to fire someone mid-season, I think you would want it to be a coordinator to really send that message. And we just talked about Alex Atkins with his contract, with the show clause, that would be problematic. And quite frankly, the defense is not the reason that you are 1-6 right now. They've not been great. Obviously, we have had conversations about giving up a lot of third and longs early in the season. But if Mike Norvell, who is an offensive-minded head coach, who calls the plays, it's his offense, are you going to fire the defensive coordinator after you didn't score a single offensive touchdown? That's just a bad look too. I just think it's a really bad situation that Mike is in and Florida State is in. Obviously, you could get rid of Randy Shannon or Ron Dugans, but is that going to satisfy people? But yeah, this recruiting class is going to be horrific by Florida State standards. So if there's someone you think you need to get rid of right now, go right ahead. But I think firing any defensive coach, whether that's Fuller, Randy Shannon, whoever it may be, I think that's a bad look when your offense is literally one of the worst offenses in the entire country, and you are an offensive-minded head coach who calls the plays.
Yeah, it'd be tough to do it defensively. You're very right there. I guess unless you just made a change at the top. And maybe it'll be easier if Miami scores 60 points this weekend. Maybe, you can't do it after Duke because the defense played well against a bad offense. And then, the guy that you're probably most likely going to fire on the offensive side helped you win a national championship. And so are you going to do that mid-season to appease the fan base? Probably not, and so I get it. Not an easy situation for Mike Norvell. When it would have been easier is when you were 13-0 and hiring from a position of strength. Yes. And so, as hard as it would have been last year, I continue to say that was the time to do it. So what are your thoughts? The coaching contracts that we're kind of riddled with right now, will we even be able to make the changes necessary to get this thing pointed back in the right direction? I'd love to hear your comments down below. Make sure you are supporting our friends over at BetUS. Again, appreciate them. We'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.